We have a piano trio, as you can see. Okay, thank you. Well, so then maybe the best thing, the best way to, why don't you play a little bit of the Beethoven, and then I'll stop you at some point. 2 points, and one kind of small and one perhaps a little bit bigger. So the smaller thing is that I think, and I may not have written this in my comments yesterday, but your tendency is when the music is soft to get slower, and when the music is loud to keep your energy. And I think you should try to keep that energy even when it's soft. The first place I noticed it started to get a little bit slower is when you guys have the unison scales. Another place is where you have, again, the long slurs in the development section. And those are, so you're viewing those slurs as places for sustaining. And they are sustaining, but they also, I think, they can also be more soaring. So I would try to choreograph those slurs more. And it'll keep the energy. The thing about the exposition is that it basically stays soft all the way until the end of the exposition. So if it gets slower with those unison scales, then it stays slower. So I think try to sustain your energy there. All three of you played really, really wonderfully. In general, I think yesterday probably the piano was a little bit too big in the overall texture. And maybe closing the lid helps a little bit in that respect. But I think one of the pleasures for us as pianists is in playing chamber music is to figure out where we fit into the texture, where our two hands fit into the texture. And sometimes, and I said this earlier today, but sometimes our hands are like two different instruments. Like a lot of times in Beethoven trios, we have one instrument in the left hand, another instrument in the right hand, so we have almost like a quartet instead of a trio. And you know, sometimes we have 10 different instruments. It just depends. So I think some of the energy of this music, the way I try to think about it is because there is a lot of energy in this music. I try to think about focusing it into a small space and what should my forte be? What should my fortissimo be related to them? And so instead of what is my own personal forte or my own personal fortissimo. So in a way, it's sort of like being orchestrators, and all of you can be orchestrators and listen to each other, and it also has to do a lot with voicing and articulation. And this is something that's fun for us as pianists, is to figure out how to voice things and in a meaningful sort of way. And that sort of leads to the Tchaikovsky. So, I mean, maybe we could start a little bit of the Tchaikovsky. Again, the way you guys play this is very accomplished. It's very thought out. It's very compelling. I think that I think I would try to voice these chords a little bit more warmly, or a little bit more romantically. And so what that means is that sometimes we might not play forte in the left hand. I mean, it might be drastically less than what we do in the right hand. And even the right hand, we might. In fact, when I played this a couple times, I think of this part of my hand as being almost nothing. And so my energy is directed more towards the top of my hand. And I have to think of that part of my hand as being very lengthy. So even though I see forte, I'm not going to play with accent, but with as much length as I can. You guys may or may not know that Tchaikovsky actually didn't like the piano trio as a form. Yeah. But he still wrote a great one. Do you want to try a little bit of that and experiment with it? The other thing I think I may have written in my notes is that this music, even though we have ostinato type figures, it really needs to be as horizontal as possible. so sometimes it's a matter of our listening to the person playing the ostinato, and sometimes they have to adjust to us. It just depends on the given moment. Let's just do a little from the beginning, and then we'll do a touch of Clark. It's very good. You know, you could even think of, I know this first fortissimo it's already very passionate, and I don't want to diminish any of that passion, but for me this first fortissimo is not the biggest fortissimo in the whole piece. So that's another thing about this very long movement, is to try to figure out how we're going to scale the different arrival points in terms of intensity. So I think even though he writes accents, you could, you know, a piece that you might listen to, any of the symphonic works, but like if you listen to, for example, the Manfred Symphony of Tchaikovsky, there are lots of places like this where the intensity and the passion is there, but it's still sort of under the surface, and we're not going to let it out yet. Until much later. I mean, this is one place where we can kind of let it all out. Yeah. So, again, I would start, maybe perhaps still keep this a little bit on the warm side. Great. Let me see if there's anything else in general. Yeah, with this kind of accompanimental writing, there's sometimes I use less pedal, sometimes more pedal. And especially if I feel like I'm clouding the texture too much, I'll thin out the pedal. Like for example here, I know it's a C major, it's brighter at this point, it's measure 12, but I think probably you can still be not quite as full as they are, because later on you come up from underneath. Great, and the Clark, did you guys give me the scores? You did, didn't you? And I think I left them over here. Yeah, this is, in a way, it's sort of like the Tchaikovsky in the sense that somebody's always playing these triplets at the beginning, the 16th note triplets, and then later we have 8th note triplets, and then she goes down to to eighth notes and down to quarter notes, so she's slowing it down for you. So I would encourage you to keep the energy of the triplet going throughout, even though it shouldn't. In fact, in the piano part, I think you could probably experiment with playing with less spoken articulation for all of these triplets, and maybe keep the right hand on a different level texturally, because this stuff is more thematic and more interactive with what they're doing. But I think if you guys kind of keep the forward, have you heard the viola sonata, the Rebecca Cock viola sonata, which is, there's a lot of appassionato, a lot of ebb and flow, and I think that we have that at the beginning of this. Can you just try the beginning of it? Because she's very meticulous about this. It's the same in the viola sonata at the end of the opening music. We don't have any retardando yet. And then poco rit. Good. As in the Tchaikovsky, you might have to experiment with voicing this in different ways. So perhaps a little bit less in the middle, a little bit less in here. And I mean, they'll also give you feedback. You all give each other feedback all the time. But we want to hear the individual strands in the music at this point. Yeah, you guys are great. You're fantastic. I have no doubt that all of you will continue to be very successful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you comment on repertoire selection? This is something we can't know from the judge's standpoint. They showed too many things that were too big in the pieces as well.
I think the repertoire selection is really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll really go home knowing that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because all three of them are strong works. They have variety. We don't hear the Clark every day, and it's always nice to hear something that's different. I mean, I guess if you wanted to be, if you wanted to be a little bit more conventional, you could have substituted something like Brahms or something in place of Tchaikovsky. But I think that Tchaikovsky was a nice choice. And all three, it's very soloistic for all